Pastor Gill, you're up.
It is with extreme joy and eager anticipation that we greet you to this D Strong sponsored community conversation hour. Our host for tonight is a friend of mine. His family has history with us, with this community. And so I would that you, my brothers and my sisters, would appreciate the person of Brother Darrell Henderson. And before we move farther, let's do what we do as people of God. Shall we pray? God, our help in ages past, God, our hope for years to come. God, you've been our shelter through life's stormy blast. You are our only eternal home. We bow in humble submission, thankful for this amazing opportunity to reach out to those who have concerns about direction, not only of our country, but even our communities. And so we thank you already in advance for these who will be participating in this dialogue. We thank you already in advance. In Jesus' name, amen. I present to you, my brothers and sisters, President Bryant, who has so many titles and offices, it would take us the duration of this period to really adequately introduce him. God bless you, sir.
God bless you. Good evening, everyone. We're thankful for the opportunity to participate in community conversations. And I think that it's important that we participate in these conversations because some of us don't really remember all of the transitions we've been through and all the changes we've seen in District 2. But one of the things that we have to always remember is the one thing we know in life that is inevitable is change. And so change comes constantly. And we plan to have at least two former city council persons from District 2 in this conversation tonight. We have present right now Brother Keith Toney, who is a member of Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church, who serves in the community, who has done a lot with education and with a lot of other things in the community. And he's seen a lot of changes and he's seen a lot of people come and go. And so we want to talk to some people that have some institutional memory of what is going on in the community, how the community has transitioned, and then help us to see what we need to be doing now to make sure that it is transforming into that which we seek and that which we have hoped for. And so I'm going to turn it back to the moderator who will then get us started, and Brother Keith Toney will be first to speak. And then we're praying that the Reverend John Sanders from Second Baptist Church, who is also a former council member, will be joining us shortly. And we're looking forward to some great conversation tonight. So get your hearts and minds ready to talk about D2, and we want to continue to work to make D2 strong. Amen.
All right. Good afternoon. Hoping that this is an informative and inciting conversation for District 2. So we'll go ahead and get started, being mindful of time. So Mr. Toney, we just want to kind of level set. I know that we know what District 2 is, but in terms of just the area, what area is considered District 2?
District 2 is much larger than many people know. District 2 is out all the way to Ackerman Road. And also, when you get down to Broadway, Mankey Park, District 2 is huge. And when I say Ackerman Road, I don't mean all the way right on Ackerman Road, that area. It's a relatively newly built area. So we have a large reach, a large footprint. And we are very, very influential in the city of San Antonio. You might not know that by our history as far as how the city has invested in District 2, except as of late when gentrification started, I'll say more about that later. But District 2 is large. It's a very large district, and it's a diverse district. It's much more diverse than many people want to know. It is not the so-called Black area anymore. A lot of people think it is, but it really is not. It's much more diverse, and that presents a lot of opportunities and some challenges for us, especially for us as Black people who have traditionally lived generationally on the East Side.
Gotcha, gotcha, and thank you for that. And so, kind of going off of your experience, what did kind of District 2 or the East Side politics look like when you first got involved?
I got involved. I was in Germany from 85 to 92. We got here in 92. And in 1993, I started working for the San Antonio Housing Authority. I was a resident relations representative. So that's pretty much the lowest on the totem pole. But it was a great job. I loved it because you interacted directly with the residents. One of the issues that I saw was with the very well-meaning Raul Jimenez Thanksgiving dinner, was that many of our residents here on the East Side were having problems to getting downtown to the dinner. Now, were there buses provided? Absolutely. But if a single mom has 4 children, 2 of them are in strollers, it's very difficult for her to meet the timeline of getting on the bus. So I went to our manager and said, why can't we get the foodstuffs and have them brought to us here? And we'll feed our people here. And he said, I don't know, it's just never been done. So I got in touch with the folks at the Raul Jimenez family, and we made that happen for those folks. Sounds like a small thing, but it really wasn't. Because again, it's convenient for some people to get down there. That was political to me. That was political to me. And I later found out that just the thing I proposed for Sutton Homes on the East Side, which was Sutton Homes then at that time, was being done on other properties, but not on the East Side properties. So that smacked of politics to me. And I just said that isn't right. Catapulted from there to the Fort Sam Houston Independent School District, where I became the first Black school board president in the history of that district. And my good friend, the late James Howard, who was on the San Antonio Independent School District as a board member for many years, told me I was the first Black school board president in Bexar County. That I don't know. That James always told me that. So we were very proud of that. That was political. When I got on that board in Fort Sam Houston ISD, at that time, the board had been in existence for 50 years. And I'd like to say that I was the first Black president because I'm just that smart, Brother Henderson, just that smart. That's just not true. There was a game to be played, and we weren't playing the game. And so I made up my mind. As a matter of fact, when I got on the board, the then board president, who is now passed on, said to me, asked me, what's your goals? What are your aspirations? And I said, of course, to help the district prosper. But he said, no, individually. I said, well, I'd like to be board president. He laughed and said, well, I'm sure you'll be a great vice president one day, but you won't be board president. So I called my father, who was living then in Ohio, and I said, I wanted to punch that man in his throat. And my dad said, no, we don't do that. But you know what you need to do. And it all boiled down to just getting the votes. It just boiled down to, and our great state rep who's on tonight, the great Barbara Gervin Hawkins, says politics is a game changer. It's a game changer. So all I did was get the votes. It wasn't difficult. I got the votes. I became president, made history. And then I pulled up my good friend, the late Dr. Eustace Lewis, to become my vice president. So we were blackety black when we walked in there for that next meeting.
Yes, sir.
Only because we played the game.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so kind of looking at kind of where you came from in terms of politics to now in District 2, do you feel like some of the priorities or the challenges are the same? Do you feel like we're looking at new challenges here now presently? How do you feel about that in terms of kind of the challenges that you feel like you were attacking and facing back then to kind of currently now what we're facing?
Yeah, as President Bryant said, the only thing that is constant is change. So we know change is going to happen, and it's happening, and we see it. One big change, of course, as I mentioned before, is the so-called gentrification. I'm not here to demean gentrification. I'm here to just look at it realistically, that when the face of the community changes, sometimes the complexion changes, then so do resources. And it is what it is. It's my truth. And I think that's one of the challenges. It brings opportunities, of course, but they bring challenges as well. And that's one of the main things I see that has changed. And another thing has been a great change is, again, State Rep Barbara Gervin Hawkins. That's a change from when I started dabbling into politics, even before I became a city council person, when I was on boards and commissions and this appointment and that appointment, which I really think people need to look into doing. Get on a board and commission. Get on a school board. Our great Tracy Shelton is on the school board. Get on the school, get involved. Get involved. And one of the challenges I think District 2 in particular has faced is that people want elevation without preparation, and they've been successful to some degree. And we've had council persons who've been elevated to the position and weren't prepared.
Gotcha. And now, kind of going off what you're saying, kind of looking at how we can kind of help kind of the political figures in District 2, how important is the role of kind of neighborhood groups and the role of the church primarily? And you can talk about how important it was back then when you first got involved and how important it may still be today in terms of kind of those neighborhood community groups and the church.
Both are essential. Both are absolutely essential. That hasn't changed at all. And if anything, they're even more essential now than they were 25, 30 years ago, I think. Let's talk about neighborhood associations. I'm a former neighborhood association president as well. They are vitally important because politics is local. That is to say, I can't go to a group of residents and pontificate about what should be happening in Austin, Texas, when every time it rains, water backs up into their house. At that point, what's going on in Austin is secondary to them. So that's what's one of the things we have to look at. Now, let's talk about, I'm glad you brought up churches. The faith-based community of late, to me, has been much maligned, and unfairly so. Our churches have always been our base, our strongest base. And I think maybe some of our young folks and maybe some of our older folks don't have a full appreciation of that. So what happened is now we feel like we have other alternatives. So we've sort of turned our back. Here in District 2, and you have some great pastors on here right now who have walked the walk and continue to walk the walk. Still, they have forums at their churches, and they're part of D2 Strong. So they're still out here making it happen. I think they need our assistance more than we're giving. I think they need our assistance more than we're giving. And that I find to be shameful.
Gotcha. And Sin, kind of looking at kind of the present day as well and kind of the atmosphere, do you feel as though community activism still has a role today in this kind of social media culture? You have a lot of people kind of, especially in my generation, Mr. Tony, that kind of feed off of social media, go to social media, use that as a platform. And we kind of have lost kind of that essence of community activism, I feel like. And so do you feel like that there's still a place for community activism currently?
It is. There's always going to be a place for community activism. Now, I think maybe the activism itself, out of necessity, has morphed into something a bit different. But we're always going to need folks who will get out there, boots on the ground, march and hold some signs and get that visibility. And then behind that, we have these fantastic ministers, some of whom are on here tonight, and others who say, okay, you got out there and you got the visibility. Now we have to put it into practice. Now we have to get out and vote for Barbara Gervin Hawkins. We can't just march. Marching is fine. It's okay, but it's not enough. It's not enough. So we need to do that. But community activism, I think right now, what we're doing right now is a form of community activism. It truly is. Now, it may not be traditionally what people think of when they think of the 60s and what needed to be done then, and that was done, what needed to be done. But now we need it. You mentioned social media, for instance. We need to be social media savvy. We do. I truly am not like I should be, but thank God I have grandchildren who are, so they can help me. But we need it. We need it. We need everything. We can't discount anything. We need every ingredient in this cake. Everything. And I applaud, and again, to come back to our churches, our faith-based community. Some folks, younger folks, want the faith-based community to sit back, shut up and dribble, shut up and pray until we need you. And then, okay, faith-based community. No, no. These preachers on here tonight, as you know, I know I'm telling you nothing you don't already know. They're activists. They're out there. And also being activist doesn't mean that you have to be an antagonist. State Rep Barbara Gervin Hawkins again has showed us that. I admire her for many things, but one thing is she doesn't mind reaching across the aisle if it'll help her constituents. Now, there are some in our community who think that is low-key selling out because I saw a picture of you with this person in the opposition party. I'm glad if I see a picture of my representative shaking. Maybe she'll get something out of this person that no one else has gotten for the community. It's not about her or myself or Dr. Gillespie, anyone. It's about the community. So I think that's one thing is we changed up a little bit, but we still have activists out here, and they're still out here making things happen.
Thank you. Thank you. Sounds good. And so you had brought up kind of the relationship between you and your grandson, right? And so this kind of leads in kind of to the younger voter here now. Representative Hawkins, I see you joined. Welcome. So whatever you feel like you want to jump in and maybe answer a question, you can. That's perfectly fine. But I'm shifting over kind of to the young voters. And so in terms of District 2, how do you feel as though we are doing, in terms of bridging the gap between the older generation and the younger generation? And maybe are we doing a better job of it now than we did in the past? Have we lost the essence of that? Kind of what is the outlook in terms of kind of bridging the gap between the generations in District 2?
Okay, if I might, and she'll probably get me for this, but I would like to punt that to Barbara Gervin Hawkins because she has dealt with that issue more recently than I. And so I'd really, and I know she has something to say about that. So State Rep, forgive me for doing this to you, and imposing on you. But if you would take that, I'd appreciate it.
I'd be happy to, and it's not imposing at all. It's a conversation that I think we must have as a community. When we think about young people, for me, it's important, Darrell, that young people get involved. I tell people all the time, this isn't my seat. This is the people's seat, okay? But like was said earlier through Councilman Tony, we've got to make sure our young people are prepared, okay? There's room for all of us. When we get in a divisive mode, we hurt everybody, okay? So for me, just like I had two young candidates that ran against me in my latest election, and a lot of my staff was angry and frustrated about it, and I wasn't. Because as I share with them, this isn't my seat, this is the people's seat. Let the people choose. And so I think what my young opponents didn't realize is this. I have a lot of street cred. I've been here a long time. I have the receipts, okay? And so what I want to encourage our young people to do is do the work. Come get involved in the community. Don't show up tomorrow and say, I'm going to be your leader, okay? Put the time in. Let us see you working the community. Let us see you doing those things that advance our community. And then you have an on-ramp. So for me, young people are vital. You are truly, truly our future. And that's just not hyperbole. That's real, okay? So when I even think about the past, the conversation that y'all had earlier on, when I think about the past, we were a closer community. We were a community that talked with one another. The young respected the old's wisdom, or I'll say the seasoned folks. Right now, young people are saying, I want you out of the way. I'm going to boot you out, rather than saying, how can we join forces? How can your wisdom and my strength improve our community? So that's what I want to see, is that our young people join forces with us, not feel that there's a divide or there's a fight. And when we think about the community years ago, politics was defined, clearly defined. You know who was in the arena, you understood the community because our politicians touched people across the spectrum. And right now, we've got folks that just want to rise up, okay?
Mhm.
Don't really know the community, don't
Yep.
really know the needs of the community. And that's not what a real leader is about. A real leader is being shoulder partners with the community, the constituency base that they serve. And like Councilman Tony said, I work with people because guess what? Some other people on the other side of the aisle, sometimes they get some good ideas too. Okay. And I'm a learner. As an educator, I believe learning is lifelong and I can learn from anybody. So whether you have a D or R behind your name or an I want to hear your views because if you've got something you believe in, I want to hear it because that helps me craft my thinking and improve my thinking. And so, with our young people, I'm saying, come on down. We need you, but come on down the right way.
Thank you. Thank you. Uh, Councilman Tony, anything from you on that?
No, I just echo everything that the state rep just said because I think it's absolutely essential. And also, there's a responsibility. I'm 74 years old. Folks in my age group, we have a responsibility to not turn young people away when they come with ideas. We can, oh, we tried that in the 88. Oh, no, that won't work. That turns them off. You can see, and you see it in all kinds of organizations, even dare I say churches, where young folks have ideas and maybe it's not viable and it's not, but don't just shut them down. And I've seen Barbara Gervin Hawkins be masterful in including them but redirecting, maybe a soft redirection, and she's great at that. And I'm learning from her on things, although I'm not involved in politics anymore, but I still watch and learn and absorb. Like the state rep said, I'm a lifelong learner. I try to be. And so these are things we need to learn and put into practice.
Thank you. Thank you. And I know we're kind of moving, so I just want to make sure we're staying on path. So we had brought up kind of the importance of young folk getting involved at the city level. We know that there's all these national campaigns, there's city campaigns. How do we address the young voter that says, hey, I don't know the value of my vote, right? From a national perspective, I can't see really the change. So should there be an importance on kind of like the city elections versus national elections? Or do you feel like there's an importance or a consistent importance across both of those?
Yeah,
It's
again, I'll punt to the state rep on that. And then if with your permission, I'll follow her.
Perfect.
it is important on both. When we think about government 101, all branches of politics is important. They have a specific lane that they travel on, okay? So I think that what we've got to do is create those lanes so that our young people can understand. And as I will repeat, politics is the game changer. Think about it. Your local elected official determines how well your streets look and the level of investments in your community. Okay. A council person can bring businesses by creating incentives to your community. The council person can work on the flooding issues, the sidewalk issues, and also connect you to services. But then the state elected official now brings policy, brings laws that determine what happens in your lives. So that's critical. And then our congressional people that work on the federal level bring those national policies and laws that impact us. So for any young person that says my one vote don't count, don't fool yourself. Okay. People have won elections with one vote or two votes. Your vote count and we need it. And then I like to say this. Think about it. Our forefathers and mothers died for us to have the opportunity to vote. If you think of Dr. King, he was either in the State House or the governor's mansion or the White House. okay? Because that's where we turn protest into policy. I'm gonna say that again. Protest into policy. The reason I went to college and many of folks in my age group was because policy said you must open the door for African Americans. That didn't exist prior to my generation, okay? So policy is critical. Not to mention, we're looking at DC right now. The runaway train is hurting us in many ways. We've got to stop that runaway train, and that's through voting, making sure on the local level we have right leadership, on the state level and the US level. We have leadership that share our values. And finally, I'd like to say this on this matter. If voting wasn't important, why would they be trying to block us so hard?
That's
Okay?
right. That's right.
Why would they try to block us so hard? So that's where that determines where the money is spent. My colleagues are spending hundreds of millions and billions of dollars. But guess what? We don't see it. And all I would say is this: help me at the State House. Give me the power. I'm on appropriations, but I can get a nickel and dime. But the chair of the appropriation, he gets hundreds of millions. So guess what? Your vote do count, and we need it desperately, especially November 6th of 2026.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Hawkins. Councilman Tony, you said you might have
Yeah.
had something to add.
Yes, I would just say that, and I've heard people say, "Well, I see you with the state rep a lot, and why isn't she doing anything?" Well, I always say, especially younger folks, and I say younger, as old as I am, that's almost everybody, but folks in their 30s, 40s, even some in their 50s, in 20s, I should say, I say, "Did you vote?" Well, I got busy. I didn't vote. So I abruptly end the conversation. I said, let's talk about what she's doing or what I did, because it's been 10 years. I still get, or 12 years, I still get questions about what did you do? And I can look at the person and I say, you didn't even vote. I know you didn't. So I don't owe you anything. Barbara Gervin Hawkins doesn't owe you anything. Only because you're a constituent of hers does she really owe you something. You can get caught up in it, but you don't really deserve any kind of answer. You didn't vote. If she has the votes, then, and being on appropriations, she can make some things happen. Some real life-changing things. And I always say, your grandmother's alive, right? Yes. She raised you. Yes. You want your grandmother to live a better life or a worse life? Okay, vote. Then Barbara Gervin Hawkins can make something happen. Otherwise, she can't. It's a numbers game. She doesn't have the numbers. She doesn't have the power right now. So that's the only thing I would add.
Gotcha. And you guys are kind of naturally flowing into the direction of the conversation. So in regards to economic development of District 2, there's three topics that I want to throw out there, being the investment into District 2, from then to now. Representative Hawkins, you've touched on this. Small business growth. What does that look like from now to from then to now? And then also the housing affordability in District 2. Have we seen a change? And again, I can repeat those three topics when you're ready. But the first one is the investment into the East Side in District 2.
So let's be clear on what economic development is and those investments. Previously, we had a lot of small Black businesses, okay? Because we had people in office who was prepared to create programming that allowed that influx of capital. We own grocery stores, we own gas stations, we own flourishing nightclubs, we own apartment complexes, okay? But over time, when our communities became gentrified and when our elected officials weren't in tune to our community, a lot of those programs stopped. Okay. And so that's why it's so important to vote, because I'll tell you, we had organizations, civic organizations that was funded by the city. All right. Project Quest, funded by the city to be able to help people get jobs. Ready to Work, funded by the city to help people get jobs. Okay. So, what has changed is the lack of engagement in politics has weakened our opportunities. But what we do have coming in front of us, and I'm hoping we take full advantage of it, with the Spurs leaving. Oh, I'm sad that they're leaving out of my district, but bye-bye, okay? We're reimagining the district, okay? Let's take the resources that's getting ready to come to that area and make sure we're prepared to take advantage of it.
And Councilman Tony, you talked about gentrification earlier. And so I think this is a perfect time to kind of maybe speak on kind of your thoughts there and kind of how it relates to kind of just investment in District 2, the housing affordability and things of that nature.
Yeah. I hear people talk about the fact that District 2 has lost population, and therefore maybe the city isn't as focused on it on the district as far as investments. And sometimes I don't think it's about how many people are there, but who's there. When we got more white people moving in to District 2, and I look at Denver Heights as an example, prime example, then we started seeing some things happen. Even before, I recall being in Denver Heights and talking to a good friend of mine who's now passed, but he lived there for many years, was born there, and he was in his 70s at that time. And he said, all of a sudden, we got new sidewalks. Watch out. We knew. And sure enough, you got new sidewalks where people had been clamoring for sidewalks. Got new streetlights where people have been clamoring for streetlights. It's not safe. It's dark. Well, all of a sudden, the city said, guess what? They need new streetlights there in that area. When 4 or 5 $60,000 houses were demolished and a $310,000 duplex went up, we needed streetlights. All of a sudden, oh, there's a flooding problem. Infrastructure needs are on the table now. So, and that's just my view. It's not necessarily the view, but it's my view that that's kind of what happened. And again, as the state rep touched on, when you get folks in office who want that elevation to the office without preparation, and they're excited that they can take pictures with the mayor and go to lunch with some big business owner, billionaire business owner, so they can take pictures and send back to the grandmama, and they're excited about that, and they've totally lost sight of why they're in office. Because they got that elevation and there was no preparation. They didn't have a track record, like with all humility, myself or State Rep Barbara Gervin-Hawkins, she has a track record. It's there. It's not hidden. She couldn't hide it. It's too big. She has a footprint. So in education and any other field, and she's channeled that right back to the East Side. She hires, and I don't know the numbers, she can tell you that, but she hires folks from the community. She gives them opportunities. If they're not prepared, she gets them prepared. See, that's what I'm talking. That's activism. That's activism. So that gentrification thing, listen, it cuts both ways. We're glad to have folks there. We, of course, it bolsters the tax base, which is a good thing. Ostensibly, it's a good thing. So that's a good thing. But then there's that ubiquitous soul thing. We lose the soul when you've got a neighbor that now calls downtown because your barbecue smoke comes into their yard. I'm telling you, when I was in office, I got that complaint. And I'm thinking, this family has been barbecuing there for 60 years in that yard, generations. And you come to me as your council person, and you've been there 18 months, and you want to complain about it not being healthy for your baby because the neighbor is barbecuing. See, that's losing the soul of the community.
And I have a follow-up question based off of this, and it is, so with that gentrification word out there, right, we know that it has a negative connotation. What do we say to those generational families that may want to vote against investment in District 2 because they're scared that they might be pushed out of their 40-year-old home? How do we address kind of those generational families that may say, hey, I don't want investment in District 2 because that's going to push me out of my home, out of my comfort zone? How do we look at that?
Well, I'd like to hear the state rep or give the state perspective, and then I can bounce back with the local perspective, which she's very knowledgeable about as well.
Perfect. Perfect.
What's important is this: we've got to educate people. Okay, growth and change is coming. We've got to embrace change. The key to it is managing that change. And that gets back to being involved politically at your local and your state level. So think about it. Let's say gentrification may be hurting your neighborhood. That's where you ring the alarm bells to your city council person and your state rep so that we can address some policies that those policies may be if you're a generational homeowner, we freeze your taxes at a certain level. Say it's that 15-year ownership, right? We can do those things. But when we say we want to stop growth because we're afraid, now you're stymieing a community, okay? We've got to reimagine things and we've got to come up, and that's where your elected officials have the vital role is developing policy to protect our generational homeowners, also to protect the growth and prosperity of our kids. Because if we don't grow as a community will die. And we don't want that. And so I'm a big believer we can create the win-win.
Perfect. Perfect. Councilman Tony?
Well, she's actually created the win-win, and I'll use the education platform as an example. Again, I was on the school board for 15 years, public school board, but I was never afraid of charter schools. I was never. I think you have to change your thought processes, and there's nothing wrong with alternatives. There's nothing wrong with alternatives to almost anything. We want to have alternatives. In church, if you have children's church, and of course we have a regular service, there are people who just think that's terrible, and other people who said, "Oh, it's about time." Listen, you have to adapt and overcome. So that's an example. And again, the state rep, she's not. I don't know why she's trying to talk philosophically because she's actually done it. She's done it and done it well, and it gives children opportunities and families opportunities that perhaps for whatever reason, the traditional public school system wasn't a good fit for their child or grandchild. Guess what? We have the George Gervin Center over here, and it's not fly by night. It's not going to roll in for 5 years and then with a big splash and then roll out. No, it's been there and it gives us opportunities. So that's an example. She's a prime example. She and of course, George Gervin himself, her brother, are prime examples of we have to adapt and overcome.
And we got to give families choice. We get away from, one of the things that I discovered when me and George started the Gervin Academy was that we saw a lot of young people was falling through the cracks in traditional public. Okay, any monopoly is not good. I don't care what it is, because when you're a monopoly, sometimes you don't have that sense of urgency in terms of doing better, okay? Because you figure you got the market. So traditional schools, San Antonio has suffered one of the largest dropout rates in the country, okay? And so we were capturing those youngsters that were falling through the cracks so that we could prepare them for the future. So for me, it's been a God's work in terms of when I see young people out there saying, Miss Hawkins, I wouldn't be where I am today without the Gervin Center. So that in itself allowed me to know this is the right thing to do because people need smaller settings sometimes. Think about it. In the past, we'd had high schools, 4,000 kids. You lost in the sauce, okay? Versus a school where you're one of 300 and everybody knows your name. Everybody knows your plight. I don't say one is better than the other. What I'm saying is our families need choice, our kids need options, and we just got to realize that it's okay to share the space. It's enough room out there for all of us.
Perfect, perfect. And I've got one more topic, and then we'll start looking at kind of the future of District 2. And I'm sure this is a big topic. I'm sure you've faced it, Representative Hawkins, is public safety. And the idea of what can we do to protect us? And so there's an idea of community policing. How do you feel about maybe that idea or what we can do? Because there may be some people out there that just want to vote on the public safety matter. And hey, how can I defund the police, right, is a big thing, right? So in terms of kind of looking at kind of public safety in District 2, what is that? What do we have any plans, or what could a constituent do if they have concerns about that?
You know, one of the big keys is building a relationship with law enforcement. Okay, law enforcement can't do it by themselves, and the defund the police. People have that ideas. I love my brothers and sisters in blue. Okay, and when you have a relationship, it changes the game. You know, I experienced being raised in the inner city of Detroit, and I had grew up with four brothers, right? And one of our neighbors had their house broken into. It was an Anglo neighbor, and folks were trying to blame one of my brothers, but that neighbor knew my brother. Okay, that police officer knew my brother because they played in the Pale League, and they vouched for them. So law enforcement can be good if we work with law enforcement. Let's not become the enemy of law enforcement. These are human beings trying to work a job. Okay, and as you well know, fear coming up on a crowd, you never know where you stand. I justify nothing about anybody looking to shoot to kill first. I got a problem with that, okay? But what I also know is without law and order, we would have a lawless community, and we don't need that either. That's why we got to create the win-win.
Got it. Got it. Councilman Tony, anything on public safety in terms of kind of maybe what you saw back then to kind of maybe if we've seen any improvements or some challenges now?
Right. In 2014, when I was on council, I had the grand opportunity to sit in with police contract negotiations when we were going through that in the so-called evergreen clause. And I won't get into those weeds right now, but it was very controversial, as folks on this call probably know. And I was on council at that time, and the state rep hit on something. If you have a relationship to where you can call an elected official, appointed official, you can call the chief of police and say, this officer seems to have an issue. When I'll give you 3 or 4 examples, and the chief will say, okay, Barbara, okay, Keith, let me check into that. Isn't that more effective than being out here with a bullhorn? And we see that on social media, folks, not here, but in the Houston area in particular, with bullhorns and cursing the police out and that kind of thing. I'm sure it gets a lot of clicks, but does that translate into policy change? I don't think so. I think state rep hit on something.
Perfect, perfect. And so in terms of everything that we've discussed, I want to kind of lead us into our closing remarks here, and then maybe open it up to maybe some questions that we see from maybe the live chat. But what are you most optimistic about when it comes to District 2?
State rep.
Yes, for me, I'm so excited about what can happen in District 2. We're getting ready to have a major investment right there on East Commerce Street and Frost Bank Center area. Okay. It's up to us to take advantage of that awesome opportunity. We've got Project Marble with the Spurs Arena downtown, where they're going to create the sports and entertainment district. Think about it. We're sandwiched between two catalytic projects. Okay. We can make it a win for us, or we can sit on the sidelines and be victims and complain. For me, as the state rep of this area, I'm about making that win. How do we create on ramps and capacity for our folks, and particularly our young folks, to take advantage of some of these opportunities? That's where our head needs to be. Okay. How do we create revenue streams, not just knee jerk or temporary stuff, but how do we create long-term revenue streams for our community? So I'm working with a group where we're talking about all of those things that we can do to be able to join in on 2 catalytic projects that will spend anywhere from $6 to $8 billion to transform those areas. And I want to make sure that I see some Black millionaires come from that. Councilman Tony, it ain't hard, right?
Not at all.
The feel has to be there. The thought has to be there. And all I can say is, community, let's join together and not just sit and say what didn't happen in the past and we're angry with people, but let's talk about our path forward and how we can make some things happen.
Perfect, perfect. And for you, Councilman Tony, kind of what does the future of District 2 look like for you?
I think that the future of District 2 is bright. And again, and even though sometimes I still talk to people in the community and some who don't want any change at all, the big projects that Project Marvel and others that State Rep talked about, and they're against it. But I'm like she is. I'm optimistic. And I'm optimistic primarily because we have, first of all, folks in office like herself, folks like myself are no longer in office, but we're available if anybody wants to call us and tap into what knowledge I may have. I'm available for it. I know John Sanders is available. Former Councilman Mario Salas is available. Others. But also, let's not forget our faith-based community. I'm so optimistic. They're not on the sidelines. Folks, and folks who want to, listen, if somebody doesn't like you, they're just not going to like you. You're wasting your time. And if you're just against the faith-based community, that's your opinion. But they're not on the sidelines. They're here. D2 strong. The whole foundation is the faith-based community. Influential pastors right here on the East Side. So I'm optimistic about that. I really, truly am. And that there are opportunities coming for the East Side. If we weren't on the map before, we're going to be on the map now. Now, we also want to not only be on the map, we want to be at the table.
That's right.
We want to be at the table. So if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So we want to be at the table. And if we back the state rep, and I don't hear what I used to hear, why is Barbara involved in local politics? And at the time I said, because your local representative isn't doing anything. So she took up the mantle. So I'm optimistic that I don't hear that talk anymore as much. So I think that we've got a lot of promise coming.
Perfect, perfect. And last question before I go over to the chat. Whether you are a resident of District 2 and you're 18 or 80, what is it that we can do to support the plan or the vision of the representatives at the local level?
Be present, be seen, be heard, and be productive. Okay? It's just that simple. Weigh in on the situation. I don't know if you're hurting if you don't tell me. I don't know where you're hurting if you don't tell me. Let's not assume that a elected official know where you stand and know exactly what you want or what you need. So your voice is your power.
Perfect, perfect.
Absolutely. Well said. I agree wholeheartedly.
Perfect, perfect. And so looking at the chat, it looks like we had something about public safety. So it seems like there was a question of, has the crime rate actually decreased in District 2 over the years, or do we see a constant that it's kind of maintained? What do we feel about that, or what have you seen, maybe Representative Hawkins?
The trend has changed, the type of crimes. Okay.
Okay.
And so when we're looking at, I'm seeing too many young people killing one another. Okay. We're burying too many young people. And so back then you had a good fight, and you walked away and everybody walked away with their lives. Today is different. Okay. Back then we knew each other, we respected each other, and we upheld the sanctity of life. So I think the type of crimes have changed. Think about it. Drive-by shootings have been reduced some, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so break-ins have reduced some. Maybe it's the door ring. I don't know. Okay. But the reality is, I think it just have shifted on the type of crime that's out there.
Gotcha. And so, Pastor Jones, President, is there any other questions that have maybe come in that we want to ask our guest here today?
Yes, that was a question about a 20-year plan for the community. What can be done to create a 20-year plan for the community?
Well,
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, you go ahead, State Rep.
Okay. So if we look at a 20-year plan, I think we've got to just understand that we got to sit down at the table and flush out what's now, what our assets, I call it doing asset mapping, where we want to be, okay, and then start charting that path to getting where we need to be. And so I think it's doable. I mean, we have a lot of, and the councilman can share a lot with this. We got a lot of books about plans. Like I think we got the arena plan, the east side plan, the this plan, or that plan. That
Yes.
means nothing if it just sits on the shelf, Councilman.
Yeah, 100% correct. We have to have a plan. We had the pipeline plan when I was in office to the Vista Ridge pipeline because they said, listen, we don't want to run out of water, as improbable as that seems. So that was one of the votes I took that almost got me tarred and feathered. But I thought that we have to look 20 years. You know, there are folks in other communities that plan 20 years out. We plan till Friday. So we can't compete like that. But again, at the state level and working hand in hand, it doesn't work if we have a council person who feels that he or she is being put upon, being diminished because the state representative has the audacity to be concerned about the constituents that they share. Work hand in hand. Work hand in hand. So that's one of the things that really is you can tell I keep coming back to, kind of bothers me, is that had I been in office longer, we would have worked on a state plan. I would love to have had the opportunity to work with Barbara Gervin Hawkins and Commissioner Tommy Calvert Jr. To say, listen, not for me to lead anything, but sit back and learn. We feed off each other and look at what we can do. You know, there's something to be said about a leader who will plant a tree that he or she will never enjoy the shade of. Know that 20 years from now, I'll have needs, but they won't be anything having to do with politics. That's for sure if I'm alive. But somebody may benefit from it. Somebody's going to their grandchildren are benefiting from the George Gervin schools and the things that Barbara Gervin Hawkins and George Gervin started. So that, you know, we have to look out 20 years. It's not that far. You know, I guess when you get older, you realize 20 years is no time at all. It's coming fast. So that's one of the things I think we need to do. Patrick, Reverend Jones?
Yes, I that was another comment, and I'm gonna say it like this. I'm gonna put it as from Pastor Darrell Thomas. I'm going to put it in a different language than he put it, but I'm gonna be saying the same thing. We need some small victories so that people can see that the system works. Well, I mean, we can't lose at everything and expect for people to get fired up. So we have to get something. We have to come up with. We have to have some small victories somewhere, and I think it's just a matter of coming together and working together to create some small victories. And I believe we could start right there with the Project Marvel. And I mean, surely there has to be a starting spot. And someone who talked about plans, there are several plans out there. You have the Eastern Triangle. You have what's the other group with Ken them? E something.
Yes. Yeah.
SA 2020, you got all kind of stuff.
SA 2020,
Yes.
which
Yes.
is already 6 years past. What was supposed to happen 20 years ago? We didn't receive much of that. But you know, you have several different plans out there, and I think that's the problem, is because all of these plans are out here and nobody's sitting down together. And as long as we're fragmented as we are, we'll never see the victories. There have been some small victories, but we don't see them because we're so fragmented.
And gentlemen, I think no doubt we're on to something, but I wanted to share something. A victory for me this evening. I'm headed to a concert at the Frost Bank Center. So I'm going to tune out.
Earth, Wind, and Fire.
You got it. Okay.
No, we want to thank you, Representative Hawkins. I think we're typically at the end of what we wanted to do.
Yes.
Councilman Tony, any last remarks before I hand it back
I
over
have
to
one thing
go ahead,
before
Reverend
we
Jones.
go.
Oh,
Because
Pastor
I
Jones.
don't want the former councilman Tony, Brother Darrell, you did a marvelous job.
Absolutely.
Marvelous job.
Absolutely. Great
Uh,
job.
I don't want former councilman Tony to sell District 2 short. We're much bigger than he described. District 2 now goes out across 1604 to
True.
Field Road, everything south of I-10. And
True.
there's a little portion inside of 1604 off I-10. Some of that is District 2.
It is.
So we have a large area to work with. East
Right.
Terror Hills, Mackey Park. We have a large area to work with, and that means that they have more young people to get involved in what we're trying to do. That was one
Yes.
question about Reverend John Sanders. Hey, we're gonna get him on here next week, one way or
Okay.
another. We'll get him back on here. He's been watching on the YouTube channel.
Okay, good.
So I think he had
Good.
some problems getting in, but we'll
Okay.
get him on here next week.
Well, my only closing thing would be that I'm optimistic because we have organizations, and again, I'm a member in full disclosure, but D2 Strong, for instance, are out there with great ideas, making things happen. We need support. We can't do it. Again, we talk about wanting small victories and needing small victories. And let's also look at why we don't. Let's vote. Let people pushing registration. That is really, really good. But we know registration doesn't put anybody in office. Votes do. Votes put people in office. And we know that the voting system is under attack. The same person who goes to Florida to his compound, votes by mail, and is out here saying, let's stop voting by mail. So we have to we have to know that these things are out there. So we counteract it. It's not rocket science, as the state rep said. Vote. Get out there and vote. Take somebody. You going to vote by yourself. Your car empty, just you. No, get 2 or 3 people. We know folk in our church who are in senior citizen homes and those things. Pick them up. Take them to go vote. They'll bring it out to the car. They don't have to get out. They can stay in your air-conditioned vehicle. They'll bring it out, let them vote right there at the car. So thank you so much. Thanks.